occasion and saying, look here, we are up to task given to lead. But I want to look from the perspective of the role of young people can play in making sure that 2017 general election will be largely peaceful and will be largely democratic. And young people, we need to come up and say we cannot be used for any other purpose apart from doing that which is right. Our voice needs to be heard loud and clear that the issue that we face as a country affect young people the most. The issues of corruption are affecting young people the most. When you look at the way young people are being involved economically, it has gone down. Business environment, young people are still trying to get
their space
get
also.
their space.
And, yeah, right.
And that tells you a lot, that young people suffer when things are not in the right, are not done in the right way. So young people are coming up and saying, at the end of the day, when we get a good leadership, when we get an alternative leadership, we will be in a position to uplift this country to the next level. And based on the forums that I've attended, young people are being engaged. There is one program run by CMD that say, not with my vote. It is.
Maybe you can just what is CMD for the purpose of the
CMD is Center
viewer.
for Multi-Party Democracy.
They
have this program enlightening young people on the effects of bribery during election, and this is to sensitize young people that at the end of the day, we have a choice that we can choose leaders who have their interest at heart, or the people who don't. And we've seen in the past that politicians come with money and they give money to young people to cheer them during campaigns and all that. And at the end of the day, they are being paid some few shillings. And these leaders go, they call loot because they need to recoup what they used.
Right.
And I believe young people at this time are beginning to realize that it is us who will suffer. And now going forward, young people are getting engaged. And those who are joining politics, well and good. What I would urge young people to do, if you are interested in politics, you need to package yourself well and differently. Do an ethical campaign. And at the end of the day, people
and we'll get to that in terms of now youth taking up leadership.
Yes.
And right now I want to bring in Wangui. There have been some concerns, from the kind of, spewage, you can say that, the kind of words and politicians are using, that it seems to be a sensitive time even as we head towards the electoral period, and that there are worries that if we continue like this, politicians just dividing people, not just the youth, across, lines of tribalism and political alliances. Would you say it's a worrying trend you're seeing in the political space right now?
Yes, definitely. It raises concerns. Because the higher the level of incitement, the lower the level of reason. And although some people want to forget very fast, it's only just a while back that we had the disputed elections in 2007. And we went through a short process of self-reflection as a nation. And we set up several agendas. There was Agenda 1, which was getting everybody together to agree. There was Agenda 2, which was, I believe, the Kriegler Commission, which looked into the dispute from the elections.
Right.
And several things came up.
Right.
You remember then we had the ECK, and it had been taken through the process we seem to be taking the IEBC at the moment, prior to the elections, where there was discontent and people felt like there was not going to be a proper election. And then there had been built through the process of 2007 incitement amongst Kenyans, so that it led to the violence that we saw in 2008. Now, we did also talk about the reform of our electoral process. And many of you will remember it was then that we set up the Interim Independent Election Commission that was headed by Isaac Hassan, which is now the subject of the Chickengate scandal, because sometimes it is important to remind Kenyans where we have been, so that everybody is very clear that the Chickengate touches on the IIEC, not the IEBC. This came a little later. And with the IIEC, we went through a process fast as Kenyans. We registered as voters, and we went through the IIEC, the Interim Independent Electoral Commission, is the commission that saw us go through the referendum for the constitution, so that we would set up the new entities, the IEBC, that would then govern the way we would do elections. So that's a process that we've been through. We seem as a country to have very, very short-term memory, so that we forget very, very fast where we've come from. And now we are building up pretty much the same thing. In 2007, we were divided again along ethnic lines. We were told early on that elections will be stolen. So, you know, the preparation that
and this is the kind of narrative we are getting.
It is precisely
right now
what is happening now, where you're told early on that if I don't win this election, it's because it will be stolen, which then sets up the voter base, that my vote may not really be important. And that's very, very dangerous, because then when you constantly create amongst the people a sense that their rights won't, or their actions won't be violated. Their actions won't have the effect that they intend. I go to vote so that I achieve the leader that I want. If somebody tells me that if I vote, it is irrelevant, the leader that will win the election. You see, voting is a process of engagement. You and I go to the ballot expecting that we are choosing person A or person B, and we are both agreed at the point we are casting our vote that one of those people might win. But if I tell the voter for person A that irrespective of your vote, if person A wins, person B will steal the election. It sets up the voter for person A to now have a confrontation.
You've already set them on a particular kind of expectation.
It is precisely what is happening. The danger is that as we are doing that, we are not only disenfranchising the voter, but we're also in a very sensitive time as a country, because our newly created institutions are also undergoing various changes. I'll give you an example. Where we would have an argument about a stolen election, the arbiter in a situation like that would be the Supreme Court. Now look at the state of our Supreme Court at the moment. Again, we have issues with the Supreme Court, which all require resolution, whether it is the judges retiring, or whether it is dealing with the claims of bribery. Those are very serious issues. And if they touch on the Supreme Court, particularly because that is the arbiter in our most sensitive election, the presidential election, if we do not have our act together, then we are sort of left, we leave the voter base quite incited, but at the same time making them feeling powerless and helpless. That narrative has got to stop. We have got to go to the point where we agree as a nation that we fought as a nation for a constitution for so long, and we finally together, through the vote, through the referendum in 2010, agreed that this is how we want to govern ourselves. Then we must give ourselves the opportunity to work within the infrastructure that we laid down, because that is the only infrastructure that all of us subscribe to, so that we don't move away from the structures we've made at will, because then what will be the point? If today I whip the emotions of the people and I disregard the process of removing commissioners from the IEBC, what is to stop me from removing the judges of the Supreme Court using the same way? And where then do we stop? What is to stop us from removing the senators? Or what is to stop us from
removing... Because then you would have set a precedent.
What is to stop us from removing any other commission for that matter? So we've got to sort of come back to where we are, as a place of sanity. We are going through the implementation of a new constitution. We are definitely going to have problems, because we are reinventing our governance structures. But we've got to give ourselves time to do it right. But then as we do it right, we've got to subscribe to the laid down framework, because that is where all of us go back for reference. What does it say about removing this commission? If this person veers from the constitution. Let's say if you want to pick any public figure, any state officer, if this person has done wrong, has been found to be bribed, has been found to have disregarded. I think we've also forgotten, we went through a similar process of removing a judge of the Supreme Court. When we removed the Deputy Chief Justice, Dr. Baraza, we went through a process that was established, that we all agreed on. There was an allegation of pinching of the nose, then that went through a process of being investigated. We had a tribunal, and she walked out. And we were okay with that. It didn't leave anybody feeling injured. We've got to give everybody
just hold
similar.
that though, because what you talk about speaks a lot to the need for, is it a civic education on the
And
public
sanity.
and all that. But let's just remind our viewers of this breaking news that, you know, reached our news desk a couple of minutes ago of the death of boxing icon Muhammad Ali. And on your screen, on the split screen there, you can see pictures of the icon, and even as what has been coming in is tributes being given to the late Muhammad Ali. He dies at the age of 74 years. And even as we continue with this discussion with our panelists, remember you can call in to ask questions or to contribute, and also perhaps give you know, your messages of tribute and what you remember about Muhammad Ali, even as we continue with our discussion. So on your screen, you'd see pictures of Muhammad Ali and some tributes being given to him, but on the split screen, even as we continue with this. And what Wangui says here, Rashid, is that need for us to have, you know, institutional memory, to know where we are coming from, and that should help us to, you know, move ahead. Like the narratives we are seeing right now are pretty similar to what we were seeing in the political sphere before, you know, 2007, 2008. And what really needs to be done, or what kind of perception or an active mind does the electorate, a big percentage of which is the youth, need to have even as we go into this you know, electoral period?
I really appreciate Wangui's background in how she has brought up our deficiency in our institutional memory. But I wish to remind that any society, the success of any society is dependent on its leaders. And there is this wise saying that goes that leadership is about nurturing leaders and not nurturing followers. Now the question will be, are the youth in Kenya playing the role of leadership, the leaders, or are they playing the roles of being followers of the leaders? And because the youth are very vulnerable, as Kip Kingoy has said, that we are not actively engaged economically.
Right.
We are highly vulnerable, and that makes us very easy for the politician to influence, you know, the youth doing the wrong thing. But I still want to say this, much as there are so many rights that are being discussed, but rights and peace are phenomenal and they're being intertwined. The question is, what comes first? Is it the rights or is it the peace? And this is something that should go to both political divide, the Code fraternity and the Jubilee fraternity. They need to ask themselves, what comes first? Is it the right to have electoral reforms before peace? Or is it having peace after having the electoral reforms?
Right.
Now the question is, yesterday when we were at the National Prayers Breakfast, we were talking about trust. The inputs that we put and the process will determine the kind of outputs we're going to have. So for me, I think we need to realize that at times non-cooperation with evil, you know, is a more moral obligation than cooperation with good. You might be called to go to street thinking that you're fighting for electoral reforms, but at the same time there is the right of somebody else there who has property which are going to be demolished, their lives which are going to be lost.
So this is the kind of thinking that the youth needs to be having?
Exactly.
Right. And then what particular processes, Duncan, maybe that we need to have, because of course it is only your vote that is going to make a difference, and an informed vote for that reason. And what really will get us to that place where I know exactly what I'm getting myself into, I know what I'm voting for, and I'm not being influenced. Of course, taking into account that many aspects come into play, that if I'm poor and a politician comes and you know, gives me some couple of thousand shillings or something, then that has bought my vote. What kind of processes do we expect to see that will take us to that place? And of course, I say a process because I think it's going to be just that.
Yes, definitely. This is not going to be something that will be done in one day or 1 month or 1 year. It is a process that we have to invest in. Because